lots of things start changing. The blood flow is more efficient, the nutrients getting to your muscles is more efficient. It's been 8 weeks. How many of definitely are noticing some changes? Okay. A little more energy. As we get longer in the workouts, it's easier to go longer. Easier to go a little faster. The routine of, the warm up, picking the pace up in the middle, and then cooling down. All of those things really, Susan's done a great job putting all of this together. That, more than anything else, is gonna avoid injuries. A warm up is so important. Because when I was talking about the stages, the first stage is that cardiovascular fitness. 6-8 weeks into something, if you're staying consistent, you're gonna notice, wow, I've got better energy. My heart rate isn't shooting up to the moon straight away, okay? It takes a little bit of time now to get that heart rate up. A little more effort to get the heart rate up. Hopefully that's what you're beginning to experience. The second stage that I talked about in week 3 was muscle development. Okay, now that you got a better cardiovascular system, a better blood and oxygen plumbing system basically, now your muscles are getting fed, especially if you may have been somebody who didn't do much all winter, okay? If you're just kind of sitting around, those muscles are starting to not only get fed, but be pushed a little bit, okay? Typically, injuries, if you're staying in a nice aerobic, endurance-based program, your injuries tend to be kind of overuse things, okay? And it's, the 2 injuries that Susan talks about, too much, too soon, too fast, too hard, TOO, doing too many twos, okay, adds up, and that's where the aches and pains start happening. The third stage, what I talked about in week 3, was after the muscle development starts happening, that's kind of when the joints start coming around, okay, your tendons, your ligaments, the joint capsules, the joint tissue, cartilage, between all the bones and the knee joints, the ankle joints. That's what takes the longest to develop. And that's why having a long, consistent buildup for 8 to 10 to 12 weeks really starts feeding those joints, okay? If you overdo things, typically you feel,
The kid just plowed into the window.
They're lucky with your electronics.
Yeah, that leads to injuries. Having, excuse me, overstretching the muscles, you have a strain, okay? Over pushing the muscles. Typically, if you feel something, it's usually around the joints, okay? Unless you've really just jumped higher or tried to jump out of somebody running into the window. A quick movement is where a muscle is gonna get strained. But the consistency of just going day in, day out, day in, day out, and not recovering, that's where the tendons start getting strained. So if you think about it, your muscles, that's the meat, that's the belly, that's where all the blood and oxygen goes. And your muscle spindle cells kind of work like this, okay? It's a weave that goes back and forth. And the connection between your joints and your muscles are where your tendons and ligaments are, okay? You think about, boning a chicken or something like that, that gristly stuff, the harder tendinous kind of material, that doesn't get as much blood flow as your muscles do, okay? So if the muscles start getting stronger, but the tendons and the joint tissues haven't really caught up yet, that's where you start getting some strains and start getting, you know, some noticeable aches and pains around the joints. Anybody experiencing anything like that right now? Good, okay, maybe a few, good. Your program's working. And that's why, as we build up from week one through week 8, this week, we back it off a little bit, okay? Because for 2 months, it has been, if you've been consistent with the homework and consistent with showing up, you have seen a little bit each week, a little bit longer, a little bit more intensity, especially like the Panther group. You went from walking 1 minute to now you're running 7 this week. Eight. Okay. So it's, you know, that's a little bit more week by week by week. All the groups, I know because the way the workouts are set up, there's a little bit more challenge, a little bit more intensity, week to week to week. This week, we back off. The reason is, in training, okay, most people think, well, I gotta go harder, I gotta go harder, I gotta go harder, I gotta go harder, I gotta go harder. Well, if you keep going harder, you're gonna get hurt, okay? True training only takes place, and the people who are about to ready to run a half marathon or marathon are experiencing it this week. The training effect takes place when you back off, okay? And, you know, if we're getting ready for a half marathon or marathon, you've been building quite a bit, you know, 18, 20 weeks of just really putting in a lot of work. And then right before race day, you back, or a couple weeks, 10 days before race day, you start backing off the workouts, you back off the intensity. It makes some people go crazy because they still want to go work out, but they can't. Because what you're doing is recovering. You're letting those muscles, those tendons relax, recover, so that all that hard work that you've done to get ready for an event pays off, okay? A lot of the concepts on training really started developing in the 70s and 80s, where, you know, a lot of really very good athletes, regardless of what the sport was, not only runners and walkers, or runners and bicyclists and things like that, it was, can we push, the concept of a lot of coaches is, how far can we push before an athlete gets hurt, okay? Where a lot of things started changing in the 70s and 80s was, wait a minute, let's start creating cycles in training. Instead of push, almost until the point where somebody breaks, let's push, recover, push, recover, push, recover. So this concept of cycling through training and building in the recovery part before you get hurt, before you overdo it. And as somebody develops as an athlete, those cycles change, but in the beginning, it's build a base, recover, build some intensity, recover, build some more base, recover, build some intensity, recover, okay? And you'll see the workouts over the next 4 weeks are gonna be a little bit different, okay? The first 8 weeks was built pretty consistently, and then Susan's got some things in there that are gonna add a little bit of challenge, add a little bit of intensity, okay? So those are the things that you may wanna expect, and pay attention to the joints, okay? So that's where things are gonna hurt a little bit if they do. So something starts hurting. My knee hurts. What's going on the outside of my knee? That didn't hurt yesterday. Why is it hurting today? It's probably not what you did yesterday. It's probably what you did 2 or 3 days ago, or a combination of building up. A lot of the things that create injuries is, well, I went on vacation for 2 weeks, I didn't do anything, so I gotta get all my workouts in this week to catch up. No, you went on vacation for 2 weeks, don't catch up, just back off a little bit and start building back up again, okay? That mentality of trying to catch up a lot of times does lead to injuries, okay? If something does start hurting, and it was in the email that went out to everybody, we talk about the 48 to 72 hour rule, okay? You push it. It's a really nice day. I'm sure there's people out on bicycles and people running and walking that haven't done anything the whole time it was raining, okay? They're gonna push it, they're gonna have fun, they're gonna go home, they're gonna have dinner and just like, that was great, I got out there, I got a workout in, I feel so good. For the next 24 hours, you're gonna feel good about pushing it, okay? But 48 hours after, that's when your body, especially those tendons and muscles and joint tissue, reminds you, wait a minute, what did you do? What did you do to me that you haven't been doing consistently, okay? So it's, when you push something like that, it's the second day that really kind of matters. And that's when you want to start paying attention. Okay, is this just soreness? Did I just overdo it a little bit? Is it just kind of muscle soreness or achiness? Or is it really feel like something's wrong? Okay, you might panic a little bit. Okay, maybe I screwed everything up and I'm gonna fall apart now. Give it 24 hours. So between 48 and 72 hours, that's really the time zone when your body's either gonna start recovering or things aren't recovering, things are kind of at a pre-injury stage, okay? So after 72 hours, after 3 days, if things continue to get worse, then it's time to definitely back off, okay? Doesn't mean you have to do nothing unless it's a real, acute type injury, but just back off on the distance, back off on the duration, or back off on the intensity. So if there's something that's kind of hurting and you're sore, if Susan has a workout in there where, wow, that one's gonna kind of push things a little bit too much, instead of doing 4 or 5 repeats, do 2 or 3. Okay, do a little bit less. Or maybe take 1 extra day off, or go for a walk when the schedule said you were supposed to go do a run, maybe just do a walk that day. Or just do something a little bit less intensity wise, a little bit shorter duration wise. Those 2 things usually are gonna help you get through some aches or pains pretty consistently. Okay. So we talked, during the course of the clinic so far in the 8 weeks, we brought up Princess steps, okay? A lot of the strains that you feel, hamstring strains or the shin pain, is when you got that leg landing out way in front of you. Your hips are back here and your legs out in front of you, okay? Especially running downhill, walking downhill, overdoing it, or trying to stretch your legs out in front of you. If you want to go quicker, okay, think about pulling your heels up, okay? Instead of throwing your leg out in front of you, think about pulling your heel back. Because you pull your heel back, you've got to get your foot back down in front of you before you take the next step. So that's actually going to strengthen your hamstrings. It's going to lengthen your stride a little bit. Not because you're lengthening it going out in front of you, you're lengthening it by engaging the hamstring in the back, okay? And with the, Princess steps, making sure you're not bouncing as you're doing that. All right. The rolling out that Susan's talked about, showing you the examples. Rolling out is going to engage those muscle spindle cells, keep that tissue that I was talking about between muscle and tendon, keeping that nice and loose. Okay. The nice juicy steak versus beef jerky. Okay? You know what? Beef jerky doesn't stretch real well. So you want to keep things loose. Hydration, more than anything else, is the greatest way to avoid aches and pains and injuries. Okay? Really, the whole thing about 8 glasses of water, a good 2 liters at least of water a day. Yeah, coffee has water in it. Yeah, wine has water in it. Yeah, beer has a lot of water in it. Those counts, but, chase the glass of wine with a glass of water. Chase the beer with a glass of water. It really does make a big difference, okay? Keeping all your tendons and muscles lubricated with water is really important, okay? The heart rate zone we talked about quite a bit. That's where you're going to see a lot of benefit, because you're not going to be racing through that heart rate zone. You're kind of gradually building slowly. Okay. The core strength stuff that Susan's talked about, massively important. Okay. The stronger your core is, the stronger things are between your hips and glutes and upper legs. The stronger things are there, the more stable you're going to be every step you take. Whether it's walking, running, going up a steep hill, going down a steep hill, that's where stability comes into play. Instead of when you're landing, things are moving back and forth, you land and everything's moving forward. Okay? Really important thing to think about there is kind of where your center of gravity is. And it should be sitting right between your hip bones. If you can think, if something starts hurting outside of your knee or outside of a hip or something like that, just kind of visualize something's got like an eye bolt pulling you, somebody's got a rope and they're just pulling you forward right from in between your hips, and kind of realign how your body's moving. That's a really important thing. And making sure that your elbows and shoulders aren't going back and forth, they're going straight through. So always have your motion moving forward rather than twisting forward, okay? You want to do the intensity tool?
Sure.
Okay. It was in the...
It's in the update, yeah, but you can go through it.
Okay. So the accountability tool, the red, green, yellow, okay? So something, you ever did it, it was a beautiful day, you went down to the coast, you hiked a lot further than you've ever gone, or further than you've gone in a while. Things hurt the next day or 2 days afterwards. Use this scale, okay? If it's down in that 1, 2, 3 zone, that's green. That means back off a little bit, but keep going, okay? If it's in that yellow zone, that's where you want to wait for the next 24 hours. Give it that 72 to even 96 hours and just see if things start changing. So, proceed cautiously. If it's red, then it's time to back off a little bit. Do something a little bit less intense, or maybe just take a day or 2 off and do nothing. Okay. Corn, ice. Oh, okay. The most magic healer ever made is ice. And ice does change things a lot. If something is sore, icing it always is your first choice. I mean, you may see a lot of articles, just rub some deep heating rub thing on it, or put a heating pad on it. Not when you're talking about muscles, okay? When you're talking about muscles, usually it's a little bit of swelling that's taking place. So icing things definitely is gonna reduce swelling, but it's also gonna encourage blood flow. Because if you ice things down, guess what? It's cold. Then your body has to send more blood to warm that area up after you've iced. So it's that cooling off and then warming back up that really creates the healing and starts flushing out anything that's in there. Okay. So, questions?
So on the days that I back off from my walking, can I substitute a different exercise that uses completely different, like swimming, I like to swim.
Yeah.
So when I'm not walking, can I take a day off, but instead of not doing any exercise, can I swim?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Doing full body anything is gonna keep everything nice and stretched out and lubricated and moving.
Drinking more water, I gotta drink that.